Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, what I'd like to do is do a garden tour / update. Now, I did a garden tour like in the late part of winter, and then I did a garden tour to assess the situation when we got that really shocking snowstorm, and it was just so unexpected. And so I wanted to survey the situation of my plants because I had trimmed some. Then I have since then moved my Delphino Dora, planted some stargazers, built a self-watering container, and so I thought the best way for me to give you guys an update of what and how things are progressing is to do a monthly garden tour / update. So here's the thing. Now, I love garden tours, and I get a lot of inspirations from you guys that do garden tours on YouTube. And I also have landscaped this particular yard 3 times. So I'd like to consider myself not an expert, but an experienced gardener. So with that, you guys, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any video inspirations that you'd like me to do, I would love to hear what you'd like me to create, and we'll go from there.
Putting our life in boxes, erasing the memories so you won't notice. I'm taking the time to focus. You're by yourself, I'm by myself. Wish I could solve your problems. You're stuck on my wall.
I'm going to start with this garden because I call this garden my front porch garden. And right off the bat, as you can see, my hoplite is progressed, and that thing will fill out this whole entire area and cascade over these stones and grow these really pretty pink flowers at the end. I will be changing out my Sylvia hot lips with my Emporium because this will get about 3 feet tall and wide, and I think it'll make a better backdrop than the Emporium does, even though the Emporium does have color in it. I just think I want to change that around to see what happens this year. My heuchera here is starting to shoot out its flowers. Now, heucheras, to me, the foliage in itself is beautiful. My Jupiter's beard here is starting to all bud out, be beautiful. I mean, these are just gorgeous. This will get fairly tall. It'll probably get about as tall as that Emporium, the last limb on that Emporium right behind it. It gets fairly tall and wide, and I just absolutely love this plant. Looking straight up above, you will see how well my self-watering container is doing. I will link up the video for you to go catch on that. But as you can see, all the nasturtiums are bigger. The heucheras in it, you can see them. They're still a little low, but they're gotten much bigger. And as time progresses and the nasturtiums get larger, then they'll put some weight on it and start getting further down into this area. I will show you the other end because I did plant some daffodils in here, and they are doing pretty good. Over here, I have my stargazer lily that was given to me by my neighbor. It's now at least 3.5 feet tall. It was only about 1 foot tall when I planted the other stargazers. I believe they're stargazers, or they could be just a mix of lilies, but those are right behind it, and they are doing and progressing quite nicely. When it snowed, these back here didn't get affected because of the fact that I have the overhang on my porch here, and so this was quite well protected, and the snow didn't even touch them. But everything else seems to be doing good. This over here is my orange stone crop Cedium, and that is spreading out and looking great. It's not an aggressive spreader. It just pretty much has stayed. This is probably about at least 5-6 years old, And I have pulled some of them out from here to contain it a little bit more, but it's not invasive and it's easy to pull out, easy to transplant, and you can literally throw it on the ground and it'll transplant on its own. So now let me take you to let me take you on top of the porch first so you can see the progress on this. So as you can see right here, see that daffodil right here? And then right down here you see some daffodils. So those are coming up. Now whether they'll bloom or not, that's to be seen. But if they don't bloom this year, they definitely will bloom next year. And then the Jscursions are all doing really well. So is my heuchera over here. The spikes are all doing fairly well. This side, of course, it gets more shade, so it's a little bit smaller than the other side. But nevertheless, it's still doing quite wonderfully. But as you can see where I added that garden pipe here, so what I do is I put a funnel here and then I just add water. Right now, it looks like it could use water and it feels moist, but it could use a little bit more water. I think the last time I watered it was probably a month ago. So let me touch up on this container here. In this container, I have a peachy keen viburnum over here, a Dysandra. I did have a kudos ambrosio in here, which I believe is coming back. Yep, it's right there. I also had a Morning Glory Blow Your Mind, and that was absolutely beautiful, so I will be purchasing another one. I just love that deep blue color, so definitely complements the Dysandra a lot. Now, the viburnum typically is not a perennial, but because I overwintered it on top of my porch here, it survived and it's doing great. It's a little rough in the edges, but it's blooming and it's doing good. And the Dysandra, it also looks a little rough in the edges, but it'll be okay. Over time it will look better. So in this side, what I did is I moved my Delphinodora about 2 feet south or southwest in this area, opened it up a little bit more for planting. My salvia over here is starting to bloom, as you can see, and it's got quite a few buds coming out. Of course, my Japanese maple, it is beautiful. I took out the dead limbs out of it, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful Japanese maple, and I just absolutely love it. Now for my Delphine. Here's the story on this one. The leaves did turn brown, as suspected. As you can see there, you see the browning. Now, when I did that video, I did mention that if you move it in the springtime, that possibility could happen. Now, the reason for that happening is because when you move any established plant, you're going to sever some of the root systems, causing damage to it. And that is what those browning leaves are all about. So when I first transplanted it, it went into shock and it whimpered for about a day. Then it perked back up. The leaves, on the yellowing of the leaves, that already had some yellowing of the leaves, I'm basically going to leave it alone. Delphines are quite finicky. They don't like to be moved. They like indirect sun. They like to be protected from the wind, and they like some shade. So this is the perfect spot for it. My mums, I cleaned it up. As you can see, it's doing great. I think I'm just going to leave it right where it is. My clematis over here is doing great. It's even doing better than it's ever done before. I actually trimmed it for the first time last fall, almost all the way down. These are called the President. These are purple. These are absolutely beautiful. My whole intentions was to get it to trail up this trellis here and over. It may still have a chance to do that, but off camera I did add a jute lattice so that it had something more to cling on and wrap around the mailbox here rather than flopping all over the place, and it's doing that fairly well. On this side, my wild rose is doing fantastic. It's gotten a lot fuller. Both my silver beacon lamium, I trim them and try to keep them in a clump because they will trail off. In fact, I'll show you real quick. See, the lamium is now starting to cascade over onto this side. And this part right here also really needs dirt. My Lithidora is doing fantastic. I've got another hop-like oregano here that does always really great. I've got some pennies here. I've got some California poppies there. I've got lobelia right here that's doing really great. And then, of course, it's been filling out with lamium. And I'm going to go ahead and continue that because the lamium will cascade over. Lithodoria over here is doing good. On this side over here, which this was not part of the plan, but all my Lithodoria, my rock rose, are all doing really good. I was fighting the squirrels over the fall from keeping them from digging them out. And a lavender, I don't know the name of the species. It's a slow grower, but it stays these beautiful purple flowers. And then again, I've got some more Lithidora and a couple of lilies that migrated over. My Jurassic Park here is doing really good. The difference between this lamium, and I don't know the name of this particular lamium over here, but it's also a lamium, but it's just a different variety, and I don't know the name of this one. I like the silver beacon. I think it shows off a lot prettier, but this is nice as a variety. This fern sustained some damage last year, got too hot in this area, but it's come back. I've got some spot on over here that it's just beautiful. It grows beautifully every year. My tree here, which is a Cherokee Brave, it did get flopped over and it's surviving. I did sustain one damaged limb, but it's doing okay. This is another mum's and it's doing fine. I've got some, I believe, are hot chilies, heucheras, my Japanese maple, which is a dwarf Japanese maple. I've had that for probably 10 years, and it hasn't grown too much more than what it was originally. Love it. I just think it adds to this garden. Have some more orange stonecrop over here. My pennies are really growing up this year. My rose bush here was just overweighted by that snowstorm and just flopped over, and it was just, basically covering this whole area, so I had to pick it up and trim it back, but it's doing great. Right here I have my mammoth, and I'm gonna leave it. We'll see if I have to move it or not. It looks like the snails are getting to it, so I got to put down some calcium, which is what I use for snail bait, and it works really good. My Miss Piggies are doing fantastic this year. This is a Western Aztec rhododendron. I just love that peachy pink color, and it always blooms in the springtime. It likes good filtered sun and not direct sun, and it does really well right here, right next to this rose bush. On this side, I have some English lavender. I thought I was going to have to take it out because it wasn't looking very well, but I trimmed it back, and it's doing fantastic. I did take down my daffodils that were in front. Both of my heucheras over here, those are doing beautiful. They'll get more purple in color. I have an issue with the gutter. While I'm up here, wisteria blooms are coming in and they're starting to drop, so I'm going to be cleaning that up. I probably won't take you through that because I did a video on that already, but it'll get all of its blooms initially, then it starts getting its foliage, as you can see right there. You can see the foliage coming in. I have a lot of coneflowers right here. I do have some bee balm that was in the center. I don't see that coming up yet. Spiderwort here is doing great. Will be blooming here soon. Over on this side I have a hardy fuchsia Magdalena, and this one does not trail off. This is more of a bush-like fuchsia. This will get about up to maybe 4 feet tall. It ended up with the snowstorm killing off any of the buds that were starting on the stalks. So I trimmed it down and it's doing fantastic. This one actually grows from the ground up anyway. Now Magdalenas, just as a side note, do not really necessarily need to be trimmed. You can kind of shape them if you want to, but they really can be left alone. In this area I have a couple of Desols. I caged it up to keep them nice and sturdy and more upright this year. We'll see how well those do, because this Magdalena hardy fuchsia will kind of overshadow that one there. So I don't know how well that'll come out, but we'll see. Let's see. My yarrows are doing good. They're starting to bloom. My lucifer over there, right there, is starting to come up. My rockin' salvia over here is starting to come up. I do see that it needs some fertilization because of the leaves turning a little bit yellow. However, this area right here does need more watering, including my Rosa Sharon needs to be watered because of the eave again on the top. Keeps this from any water even when it rains. My Rosa Sharon has been struggling. I may just totally pull it out. We'll see what happens this year. But my hooker is doing fantastic. My catnip over here is doing good, coming up. Over here I have a Tradescantia purple heart, and it completely died back. I thought I lost it, but as you can see, there's a lot of new starts there. This plant is absolutely beautiful. I love it. It's been in this container for a long, long time. Daylilies are coming up. My Japanese grass below it is growing. I do have another the soul. You can barely see the greenery because it's being covered by the lamium, but it will get nice and tall. This Japanese maple tree here, it's a slow grower, and it's been here for several years as well. I have a bishop dahlia over here. This is coming up much quicker than it ever has in the past, but I've never moved it out of this yard, and it continues to come up every year. But as you can see the new growth now. Clip my phobia over here severely back because that snowstorm just flopped it over this whole area, and so just to take all the weight off of my other Golden Gate and phobia and the Jack Frost, I had to do something. So this year I severely put it back, but it'll do fine. It's been here in this yard for many, many years, and it's beautiful, so I keep it. But I did plant this Golden Gate last year. This one's a dwarf, so it won't get too tall. It'll only get maybe about 2 feet in height. Let's see. I'm going to back up again. I've got some more lamium here. I do have some skyscraper salvia over here that has not come up. I did pull out my lavender here because it wasn't doing very well, but I will be replacing that. I do have a Boulevard Clematis here. It's got some flowers coming in this year. I'm so excited for that. So yeah, that's doing really great. That will get about 3 feet tall, maybe 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. My hosta here has gotten so much bigger than it ever did last year, and it's doing beautiful. I don't know the name of it. I've got some more hop-like oregano. This one here is actually, is it starting to bloom? No, that's something else that's blooming in there. But this one here is a very small one. I don't like it quite as much. The flowers on this are much daintier. So I may pull that out and put the other type once those come into season. I do have some Coreospis here that's coming back up. This was one of the heucheras that I had in a container, in my self-watering container over in that side. Pulled them up, put them over here. My Helleborus are coming to the end of their season, but they're still doing fantastic. Got some Candy Tuff over here that's doing great this year. My butterfly shrub here, I trimmed it way down in the fall. It's doing great. My Piccolurus doing so much nicer than it did last year. Last year was new, so I believe it was last year that I planted this. And it's doing really great. It's actually even starting to cling. This type of Piccolurus will grow great on trees, but it is starting to cling onto this lattice. This Hydrangea Piccolurus will grow vigorous once really well established, and it'll get about 10 feet wide, maybe 40 feet high. Pretty large, but hopefully it'll close out this whole area out, and that's my hopes anyway. Got some more spot on over here starting to bloom, as you can see. This is a guacamole hosta. Last year and the previous years, the snails just ate it to death. Right now, it's looking beautiful in comparison to the last 3 years. So hopefully I've got the snails under control as far as this plant goes. As you can see from the changes of my Jack Frost here, look at those beautiful, beautiful flowers. My rose bush back here is doing fantastic. I did kind of trim it down a little bit. It's growing a lot of new foliage. This will bloom in the summer. I've got some more Lucifer that I had planted over there in that other garden by my porch, my side porch garden. And I threw them over here because I thought, I'm not sure if they're going to do well. But they started budding out, so I will be planting that. Have another hosta here. This is rock rose. Was over here, and I transplanted it out into this container. Haven't done anything with it. This is a rhododendron. Last fall I trimmed it back, and in the garden tour of the late winter garden tour, it showed a lot of promise, and that snowstorm just killed it off. So I think I'll be pulling that out, maybe adding another plant. I do have some valerian root Jupiters here. They're doing really great, and that sends off a lot of starts. So I ended up leaving a little bunch here because I do love valerian root. It just adds to a lot of color in the garden, and this area right here isn't the most attractive. Plus, the flowers look beautiful from our basement, so I'm going to continue to let that grow out. My grape hyacinth over here is done blooming. The snowstorm never bothered it, as you can see right here on a side-by-side. It just did fine. I just love Jack Frost. They just add so much to a garden. They do great in shade to part shade areas, and my Jack Frost will last all the way into pretty much early winter, and then they eventually die off once the cold snaps come in. But it came up really early this year, and it's doing fantastic. I have an Astilbe here. This last year it did pretty good. I have a Grandfolia Iris over here. Didn't do very well, doesn't look very well, so I'm going to be pulling that up. It doesn't get enough sun is what the problem is with that. These are my first blush hostas. This year they're looking fantastic. We'll fill in this whole area here. This here, you guys, if you guys can help me out, I'm not sure what type of hosta this is. If you guys can help me identify it, please leave it in the comments below. It does look like the snails are trying to attack it. So I need to add more calcium, which is basically crushed oyster shells. That works the best to keep the snails away from me. And so I do need to add some more of that in the ground and keep those at bay. I've got a whirlwind hosta over here that's coming out. Got this, what is that called? Anyway, I'll put it down on the description there. Now I got some Lithodoria over here, but that really needs more sun. So I probably will take it out, put something that's of more shade, an annual or something, just for color here. I've got my guacamole and my Eden. These three are giants hostas. Fill in that whole spot. I mean, my guacamole will get up to about here. It just will get huge. And I just absolutely love these. These three, along with that mammoth over there. And then this other one that I cannot identify, it's that one either. So if you guys can be of help to identify that, that'd be great. Would like to put a name to it. Golden heuchera over here. Love that. I did have this coral bell heucheras planted here when I did the self-watering container, but the squirrels kept digging them out, so I just said forget it, pulled them out and placed them over here by the butterfly tree. And then I have an astilbe here and another astilbe. They bloom these pink flowers. I've got spot on over here, which is in bloom. This here is a fuchsia. This fuchsia actually was in this container, or my previous container, and I pulled it out and put it here. Did a self-watering container, as you can see. Let me see if I can get this to. As you can see, it pours out water. So I did a self-watering container in this, so this will stay nice and kind of moist, but not too wet because of the way I designed it. If you're interested in a real quick video on that, I do have the clip on when I created it. So let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see how I created that. Right here's another Persian chocolate. And this one here, I love it. It grows these beautiful yellow flowers. And it's not a vigorous grower, but it's a nice ground cover. And it's not invasive. That's what I like about it. Easy to pull out if you need to. I just love the color on it. They like a lot of shade, so this is a perfect spot for it. Oh, there's my other hosta right there. That's the hosta that was over in that garden, side porch garden over there. I moved it because it was getting too much sun over there, and this is a perfect spot for it. This is a mammoth, which is a slow grower, because of, and it's been here for quite a few years, but it's finally getting bigger. This is more shaded, so it's taking its time on its growth, but that's okay. It does fine every year. I'm okay with that. Rainbow fizz over here. That one has little tiny pink flowers. I love the variegated leaves on it. It adds to a lot of color in this area. This butterfly tree here, with that snowstorm, it actually split it. This is the second time this tree has been split, and I did prop it up the first time. It is a very old tree. Eventually it will come down, but until it is a must of taking it down, I'll just continue to keep it trimmed up, because I don't know what I would do without it, because this garden here is my shaded garden, and I just absolutely love it. Without that, shading this area would really expose this side to a lot more sunlight than it really needs. So hopefully it'll continue to stay, but it is old. It's been here in this yard, probably planted over 20 years. Over here I have another fuchsia. I don't know the name of it. I've had it in here for quite a few years. I got my bleeding heart here, and it is just doing fantastic. more lamium. My winter clematis here, it's done blooming, and this has gotten out of control. Need to trim it, but it's doing really well. I've got some Dracula, and I called this a Carnivorous plant. I will put the appropriate name for it. I did more research on this plant, and although it does smell horrible and everything, it's not a carnivorous plant, but it does, what it does is that it does attract flies into it, but it doesn't eat them. Last year I found a lot more bulbs in this area, and I just kind of spread them out. So we'll see how well this blooms and what it does. If I need to pull it out, I will do a giveaway if you're interested in them, because in its appropriate place, this will actually do really well. And it's beautiful of the bloom. And then I've got right here last, I've got some sedums that are just great. They get just the right amount of sunlight here for them to bloom and do well. Over here I just have some thyme, herbs, not much else. I've got a lily of the valley here, and that pretty much concludes the front and the side. And so I will take you to the back and do a review on the back of what I've done, what's going on there, and then I will give you a walkthrough in the backyard really quick. Excuse the mess, because there's things that I got to do. My clematis is coming up over here. I do need to take care of it a little bit. My blackbird euphorbia is doing really good. It's just finishing its blooms. The hop-like oregano is starting to really pop out. The angel's wing is starting to come up. Now, this was my Dysandra. It's all obviously died, but it should come back up. And if it doesn't, I will be planting more. It typically does. Dianthus is starting to come up. In fact, it's starting to bud out. This is a star jasmine. That's doing fine. I have another one over there. My lilac tree is in full bloom. It's doing fantastic. I did trim it a little bit before that snow, and it just did okay. Now, here's all my plants that I will be planting. A garden up there on my next video. This is my St. John's wort. It took a beating a little bit from the snow, but it looks like it might survive and do fine. My Japanese grass is coming up. All of my hostas that I planted here, and I won't go into each individual. I will link up that video where I talk about these. So all of these hostas are starting to come up. I did end up replacing the back bamboo because the other one was really just falling apart. So I replaced it. So now you can visibly see my neighbor, but that's okay because my clematises and everything here will still be protected, but it'll get proper lighting. Both of my Elsa Splat, which is this one over here, is doing really great. I did end up replacing that trellis with some beautiful leaf trellises after completing the video of replacing the trellis, so go catch that video. And I think even though you really can't see the leaves, it still adds some artistic structure to this backyard. And my Nellie Moser over here, as you can see, it's doing good. It looks like it might be fighting some stuff, so I do need to spray that. But look at these buds. Look at these flower buds. They're just, oh, I've got 3 of them. These ones are going to be really big this year. And then here's another bud over here. So this is doing really great. I caged up a lot of my hostas because when I let my chickens out, it'll protect them until they come out. Trimmed down my salvia, hot lips, My lily, I will post a picture here next to this where this was just looking horrible, but it's surviving. My Shahuli rosebush tree is doing really great after trimming it. All my coneflowers, they're all coming up. My Pergola coriaspis, it did, the chickens kind of scratched out some of them out, but this gets fairly large. Elderberry is doing really good. We'll see if it blooms because I did trim it twice, once in the fall, late fall, and also just recently in the early part of spring. And sometimes when you do that, it could affect the flowering. But the foliage is still beautiful, so I'll see what happens. I'll update you guys when it does. And then my California lilac here, I ended up taking out the branch that was all down here because I do want to plant some more stuff here. And so that opens it up for that. My Kudos ambrosia always hung down, really kind of wimpy, and then I propped it up last fall. It's looking fantastic. The other thing that I did, this is a Tanga clematis right here, entwined with my star jasmine, and I pinned these up off camera. I trimmed my Italian parsley here. I cleaned up my triple curly parsley over here, and then I pinned both of the Tanga, and it's intertwined here. Like you can see the difference. This is the Tanga clematis, and then this one here is the star jasmine. My star jasmine all along over here on the trellises are doing good. So yeah, so now let me do a really quick walkthrough so you can see what my yard looks like. Thank you so much for watching.
Like a wild man, sleeping like a child. You're so luminous and vibrant. I'm always in bloom for you. Always in bloom. Always in bloom for you. Times I've stranded, a castaway on unknown shore. Although a stranger in this continent, I'm always in bloom for you. Always in bloom, always in bloom for you. Infatuated love.